This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Fine Tooning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. He and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, June 29th. And folks, you may recall from last week's show, Drew spent a good part of June over in France, where he first covered Annecy's International Animation Film Festival and Market, and then Mr. Taylor and his lovely bride, Katie, went on their first ever trip to the Disneyland Paris resort, and I recall asking on last week's show about any souvenirs Drew brought back, and I think you mentioned a Spirit jersey that you picked up at Chez Remy.
Yes.
But in the week that's followed, we found out about another souvenir.
Yes, I was extremely under the weather all week, and Jim has helpfully volunteered to structure a much shorter show today. Not much shorter, but just shorter. Just so that I can go back to the couch, which is where I have been every off moment in the week since. Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of us go for the more authentic Parisian experience, and this was the Black Plague package.
Yes, I blame the little kids. We were in the Castle Club level at Disneyland Paris, Jim, and we got there early at the kind of little kind of game room or whatever to watch the fireworks, and I had a lovely little Italian kid come up right next to me and was screaming and coughing the entire time, and I think it's little Gianluca gave me a lovely parting gift. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, on that note, that's great. We blame an entire country. Okay, this is good. I'm sure.
Yes.
There'll be no blowback.
Mamma mia,
okay.
Jim. Yeah.
So, as he referred to, out of deference to Mr. Taylor and getting him back to his couch as quickly as possible, we're going to do an episode on the short side. But so let's get to it. And we'll get to this week's box office news, which is brought to you by UnlockedMagic.com, which is the area where you can get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And just so you know, Unlocked Magic is the same team that's behind DVC Rental Store and the DVC Resale Market. So you can just pick your dates, grab your tickets, just avoid the Italian tourist with a cough. Anyway,
yes.
Okay, getting to this week's box office news. But before we do that, I want to remind you the website, unlockmagic.com. So, all right, not really surprised that Formula One, F1 came out at the top of the box office, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it overperformed. I think there was a little bit of a question about the domestic box office because Americans don't know anything about F1, myself included.
Okay.
But yeah. It overperformed. It's a great movie. Absolutely wonderful. Jim, on cheap Tuesday night, you should take your bride.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, we will do that. Now, number 2, How to Train Your Dragon, still going strong. In fact, what is it officially now? $200 million domestic. Though, Drew, you were pointing out, I guess, the real story this weekend, especially on the heels of everything that everybody was saying about Pixar's Elio last weekend, was very strong hold for that film at the box office this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I believe it was like, what, 46% or something. So, I mean, it's a pretty 48. So anything less than 50, as you and I have talked about, Jim, is a pretty good hold. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not great. It would have been better maybe if it had dropped 30% or less than 30%, but people love the movie. I still haven't seen it yet, so I am a terrible animation podcast co-host. I'm very excited to see it, but yeah.
I again, you've had Plague. You're allowed. If it's any consolation, I too am an awful animation podcast, because I haven't seen it either. But we're hoping this week. That said, though, the other big story, Lilo and Stitch. We were just talking about How to Train Your Dragon, 200 million domestic this week. Lilo and Stitch, the live-action version, the Dean Fleischer camp film, made it over 400 million. And in fact, right now, worldwide, it's poised at 945 million. Did you, so of course, when you make that sort of money at Disney, things happen. So did you see the teaser ad or the video that they put together for Lilo and Stitch 2?
I did, Jim. I didn't know that an official Disney product could only cost $12, but that little announcement certainly did. They were using the animatronic Stitch and the kind of like Hot Wheels car that they brought out to the premiere and to the junket and everything else to announce that the sequel is in development currently, which, as you and I know, Jim, means that there has been probably 5 meetings maybe on the books about it, and that's probably as far as the development has actually gone. But it shows you how robust the box office is and how bullish they're being about following it up with a sequel. I cannot tell you, Jim, one of the weird things about Disneyland Paris is their extreme love of Leroy, the Stitch-like red character from Leroy and Stitch. He was everywhere. There were shoulder plushes.
Sandwiches.
Yes. He has the shoulder plushes, all of this stuff at Disneyland Paris. Big, you know what they call France, Jim? Leroy territory. So, yeah, they love him over there. Yeah.
There we go. Him and Jerry Lewis.
Yes.
So, okay. Now, interesting thing, and Drew just mentioned, really at this point, there's only been, 5 meetings or thereabouts on Lilo and Stitch 2. As I understand it, though, that the first thing that was determined is like, okay, what's the possible release date? And where this got interesting, or at least from what friends of the company were telling me, is that the immediate impact of the decision of, okay, we are definitely going in this direction, is the live action Tangled that was supposed to be greenlit on the heels of the success of Lilo and Stitch. Now has been pushed off possibly as far as 2029. Had you heard that? Or
there were those comments that it was paused, and I think you and I both knew that it was going to be only paused until Lilo and Stitch came out and made, as we are seeing, almost $1 billion. So, yeah, I mean, you and I both know that the jigsaw puzzle of Disney release dates is really a science at this point, because there's at least one Pixar movie a year. There's one Disney animation a year. Now you've got to factor in Lucasfilm and Avatar and everything else, Marvel Studios, obviously. So, yeah, just finding that date. I mean, I figure the soonest this will come is maybe 2027, 2028 for Lilo and Stitch 2. They need to make it quick because the little girl is going to age.
Well, there's that, but also, from what I understand, one of the other factors here was Universal announcing How to Train Your Dragon 2 for 2027.
It could be another showdown, Jim, of the Chris Sanders live action movies.
There we go. Now, you were just mentioning Marvel films, and a bunch of those have been directed by Taika Waititi, who I guess, what was it, 2023? We saw the announcement of a live action version of Akira, all right? The famed manga from 1982 that then became the amazing animated film from 1988. And
yeah, but Jim, you and I are old enough to know how many people have been attached to this adaptation.
God, yeah.
From the Hughes brothers to Jordan Peele to, I mean, everybody has been attached to this thing. And now it's out in the open again.
Yeah, I mean,
you saw that Warner Brothers has let its rights lapse. So Taika, who brought it up pretty regularly, it's not happening.
Well, I'm just fascinated by how that happens. How you let rights to a property like that slip through your hand. And I bring that up because I don't know if you saw just in the past week the announcement about the new stage musical version of The Princess Bride, where kind of an interesting bend on the story. The score for this thing is actually going to be written by Bobby Lopez and Kristen Anderson Lopez, the husband and wife team who did Frozen and Coco, and that would have made sense back in 2019 when it was announced that Disney Theatrical had acquired the rights to The Princess Bride and for a Broadway musical. But did you see buried down in this announcement that this isn't Disney that's doing this now?
No, who's doing it?
Well, that's what's fascinating about it. It's like Alex Timber, who, by the way, was the original director of Disney's Frozen on Broadway until he walked away from that production. So it's a different bunch of folks. I want to say, what is it? Jeffrey Sellers, who did Hamilton and Avenue Q, is involved. But it's just sort of like, how did Disney let The Princess Bride slip away?
Time to email my good friend Thomas Schumacher, and I will get you an answer.
All right,
maybe.
please, because I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Disney obviously has stuff going on. Just in the past week or so, we saw that new production of Hercules open in London, and this came on the heels of the production in Hamburg last year. And if all the signs are correct, Disney is looking at bringing this very same show to Broadway for the 2026-2027 season. But in between there, we have a 30th anniversary production of Beauty and the Beast. That's Disney's first stage musical. And by the way, caught that just last night in Schenectady. And when we get back from this break, Drew and I will talk a little bit about that.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
And we're back. Okay, we're going to talk Beauty and the Beast in a moment, but want to spend a moment here talking about Zootopia 2, which arrives in theaters November 26th of this year. Did you see what Disney is doing in China to sort of promote this franchise?
I did see that. Yeah. It's a series of 2D animated short films to kind of prime the pump. Not that the Chinese audience needs it, because they are crazy for Zootopia, as is evidenced by the land in Shanghai.
This is true. This is true.
But yeah, really interesting. That's the approach.
Yeah, I would love to see these things show up on, say, Disney Plus at some point. But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
These 4 things only for the Chinese market, or at least at this point. But and at least one of them's done in the stop motion style. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, all 4 of them are different sort of takes on hand-drawn or tactile forms of animation. And speaking of stop motion, we have ParaNorman returning to theaters later this year. You came across that as part of what? Laika's 20th anniversary celebration?
Yeah, I think it's the kickoff for the 20th anniversary celebration. But did you see that there's a new CGI short film with it?
Yeah,
which I'm very interested in. Yeah.
Yes, especially this is a return of the boyfriend, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I think I always loved the button on the film about how that storyline ended the original ParaNorman. So fascinated to see this character back.
Yeah, my favorite Laika movie.
Yeah. Now that said, though, it's important to remember here that we have a new Laika film coming, and in fact, it's closer than you think. What is it? Wildwood. Current release date is January 16th, 2026. Right?
Yes. I don't think that's correct. From what I've heard, I've heard maybe fourth quarter 2026.
Oh, man. Really?
But I've heard it's coming along super well, and they're meeting with potential distributor. That's the thing, Jim. They don't have a distributor yet for it. So they have to work all that out, and whether or not it's going to be theatrical or streaming. I hope it's theatrical.
Okay. Same thing
and
here.
Then, yeah, Travis is doing Masters of the Universe that's coming out next June. So there's just a lot of activity at Laika, but yeah, not January. I'm sorry to report.
Well, I mean, look, obviously we would all love to see Wildwood in a theater, but at the same time, when you look at what's going on in animation right now, I mean, for example, the K-pop Demon Hunters. Netflix. I mean, clearly, folks there, subscribers there, have embraced this film. It's number 2 there at this subscription streaming service this week.
Number 2 globally, and it was number 1 for a lot of the week last week. And I'm sure you saw, Jim, all the stuff about the music being number 1 on Spotify and iTunes and all that. Yeah. Have you watched it yet?
I have watched about 2/3 of it, and it's one of these things where you got to get back to it. It is so much fun.
I love it.
Yeah. They did a great job. But at the same time, there was a part of me watching it here on the flat screen at home. It's like, this would have been cool in a theater. But
yeah,
it's still a great film. Speaking of great films, you also came across the New York Times top 100 films of the century, and wanted to talk about the only 4 animated films?
4 animated films, 3 Pixar movies, and 1 Studio Ghibli movie. Okay. That's it, Jim. That's all they would allow in their little club with their monocle and their top hats and
All right, so let's start with the obvious. Okay, so we have our Miyazaki is Spirited Away, and I could, if it were, for me, it would have been Totoro, but
Totoro came out in 93, Jim. This is 2000 on.
Oh.
So,
okay.
You're looking at...
That's the conceit.
It could have been Howl's Moving Castle. It could have been Boy and the Heron. It could have been Wind Rises.
All right. So it's this century, the century we're in.
This century, yes.
This century.
2000 to 2025, yeah.
Okay. So we now pivot to the Pixar. So what? We have WALL-E, Ratatouille, and Up. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Incredibles omission is staggering, but
I would also argue that Luca.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Luca is a triumph. Mm-hmm. I agree.
Okay. By the way, we were just talking about Up, and I don't know if you saw that thing that bubbled up on social media a couple of weeks ago. I think you might have been traveling during this period,
okay.
But the news about there had at least been an overture from Disney to the folks at Pixar about could we, especially on the heels of How to Train Your Dragon and how well it was doing, could we perhaps take a look at taking at least one Pixar film and trying to do a live action version? And did you see this conversation about Up?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I guess someone at Disney actually went up to Emeryville and argued that we do have a working relationship now with Harrison Ford. And how would you feel about Harrison Ford as the live action Carl Fredricksen? And evidently, that was it. That evidently Pete Docter, it's like, no, not just no, hell no. It's like, no, we don't do that here. You guys can do whatever you want with the Disney stuff, but we don't do that here.
I can picture him saying, Jim, get off my house, in the Air Force One style.
There we go. Yeah. All right. So anyway, there's that. Now, okay, we were just talking earlier about going to Nathan is driving out to Schenectady to the Proctor Theater to see the new 30th anniversary tour of Beauty and the Beast. And by the way, Drew, you would have loved this. The theater there, the Proctor, its claim to fame is back in the 1930s. Evidently, this was the very first venue where they did a live demonstration of television technology.
Wow.
People came into the theater, sat down, and all right, stare at this tiny screen. Look, an image. And it's like, wow, this is the future of entertainment right here.
I think it went more like this, Jim. Looky here, boys and girls. This is the newest technology. You're going to love it. That kind of thing.
All right. Well, and speaking of new technology, I know you have written extensively about Beauty and the Beast over the years. Again, this 1991 Disney film, and of course what was it,
2017?
2017. Yeah. Nancy and I just rewatched that the other night for the first time, and I no disrespect to a friend of the show, Josh Gad, who does lovely work in it, but woof, that doesn't really hold up well. Have you taken a look at that lately, or
the live action one?
Yeah.
No. I saw it once in New York, and I think that was enough for me. That was right before I did that big piece with Sean Bailey. For New York Magazine.
Don't get me wrong. A $1 billion earner, but there are just moments watching it today, just again, some 8 years after it was produced. And for example, there are moments in it where I want to say forevermore, the Beast is walking around the parapets, and it's just sort of like, this is literally staged like it's a a shooter game. The way the camera moved to follow the beast is like, okay. And this is
don't take him out.
Yeah,
don't take him out.
Well, and that's Bill Condon, right? Who did that?
Yeah. Who I love Bill Condon.
I do too, as well. But it's an interesting film to view now, where it's just sort of like I do not think it would do the business today.
Well, I mean, it's hard to follow up an absolute stone cold masterpiece. This is like when you tried to get Citizen Kane to Rosebud's Revenge off the ground, and it just didn't work, Jim. So
very true, very true. Though, speaking of a stone cold masterpiece, have you ever talked with Don Hahn about the CG aspect of Beauty and the Beast?
Not specifically about that, but I remember it being a huge deal at the time, and it still looks pretty great today.
Does, but here's the thing. There were actually going to be 2 scenes in the film that featured a lot of CG. The ballroom, everybody knows about. Amazing camera move. Though Dawn will flat out tell you that they didn't know it was going to actually work till 6 months out. And at one point, there was the plan for what they called the Ice-capades move. The notion was that because they didn't think they'd be able to get the full detail on the ceiling and the walls of the ballroom, what was going to happen is, as Belle and the Beast began dancing together, suddenly, like the escapades, the room was going to go dark, but there was this one spot on them, so that they're dancing in the dark there while Mrs. Potts sings. But luckily that worked out.
Could have been cool too, but I'm glad we got the full room.
All right, but
So what was the other?
The other scene was after Belle is run out of the castle, it is suddenly being pursued by the wolves, and the Beast comes to rescue her. And so the idea was that, okay, let's make this really exciting. Let's have Belle and the wolves racing through a forest of CG trees. And so the tech team's like, absolutely, give us a couple of months, we'll go over and make you a set of trees. And so Dawn now goes to the meeting where we're going to sign off on the CG tree. And so everybody stands in front of the screen, they fire up the monitor, and he looks, and it's like, that's a chicken foot. And said, no, it's a tree. It's a tree in winter. They don't have leaves. And it's like, well, this one looks like a chicken foot. Where are the other trees? Because Belle's going to run through a forest full of these things. And they said, well, what we were thinking, because it took us so long to build this one, is we'll just replicate that. And it's like, so Belle is going to be pursued by wolves through a forest made up entirely of chicken feet. And no, guys. And so they literally killed the project at that point. And it's just sort of, all right, just back to hand drawn for this moment in the movie. And it works fine in the finished film, but it was just the notion of you were supposed to have a similar sort of camera move through this forest as Belle is escaping from the wolves that you got in the ballroom, but that just did not happen.
Yeah, I can see it, but yeah, you're right. It works. It works as is. Okay. No notes.
Now, speaking of notes, this 30th anniversary production of Beauty and the Beast, smart update, uses a lot of the technology, projection technology to pull off some of the effects and the lighting cues, and it's a smart update of the show from '94. Finishes its run in Schenectady this Thursday, July 3rd, and then continues on to Chicago, to the Cadillac Palace Theater there, where July 9th through August 2nd, it's presented there, then continues on to Minneapolis, August 5th through the 17th, and then to Buffalo, August 20th through the 24th, and then spends the next year traveling around the country. And I'll tell you what, Drew, you were saying you had yet to see this, right?
Yeah, I haven't. I've never seen it, yeah.
Okay, well, it's coming to LA, so we'll chat with the folks at Disney Theatrical and see if we can get you set up. But
get me in there, Jim. Get me in there.
Okay, so I think, and speaking of Mr. Taylor, if you're not already listening to Drew's other podcast, Light the Fuse, which again is the official Mission Impossible podcast that he does with his equally talented co-host, Charles Hood, you are just missing out on so much good stuff. And now you were mentioning, I think on our last show, you guys had pretty much buttoned up discussions of Final Reckoning. So what's...
Yeah, we got a few more episodes coming up. We have not announced our guests yet, but I promise it'll be good stuff. Robust discussion of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
Cool.
Which is still in theaters right now. Jim, have you seen it, or are you waiting for Paramount Plus?
What can I tell you? In fact, the weird part of it is I paid for a physical copy of The Day the Earth Blew Up, the Looney Tunes movie. It's been sitting on my kitchen counter, and now I find I can just turn on Max.
Hey. Physical media forever, Jim. We say this again. It is a moral imperative, as Guillermo del Toro has said. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. It was a smart purchase. I stand corrected.
Yes.
Anyway, speaking of podcasts, we have a couple here at Jim Hill Media we'd like you to check out. We, of course, have Disney Dish, I do with Len Testa. We also have the Epic Universal podcast I do with Eric Hersey. Likewise, I Want That Too, the Disney Merch podcast that I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. Also, just this past weekend, a brand new episode of Manufacturing the Magic. That's the themed entertainment history podcast we hosted here. That's the one that's produced by Noah and Shelley Valladolid, and actually features an appearance by veteran Imagineer Joe Lancicero. And speaking of stuff that we do with veteran Imagineers, there's Disney Unpacked. That's the podcast that Len and I do with Jim Schul. And just last month, we talked about Muppets in the Disney theme parks. And coming up shortly, we're taking a look at the history of Test Track, which is now in previews at Epcot. Is that correct, Drew?
Yeah, it seems like it's open, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess previews, maybe annual pass holder previews or something. But
cast member, something to that effect. Anyway,
yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to be talking about the history of World of Motion through Test Track, or are we starting with Test Track 1998?
It's so interesting you say that, because drilling down into the GM history. There's stuff about World of Motion I never knew about how. Do you remember the opening episode of Futurama where what is it? At one point, Bender talks about, I'm going to make my own theme park with blackjack and hookers.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the thing when GM. Wants to, they're literally the first U.S. corporation designed to be part of Epcot. But they had a very specific thing in mind. They were like, we want a Disney ride. So Claude Coates is the first pass on it, and they're like, no, a Disney ride, like for kids. And so they then bring Mark Davis out of retirement. And he works on.
I remember he came out of retirement for that.
Yeah. And then, even then, when Mark Davis and Claude Coates, the guys who brought you Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion, the executives of GM, no, a Disney ride, like for kids, and they have to bring in Ward Kimball to like slather whimsy on the back of this thing. I mean, it's just, that's the thing. There's parts of the story I'd never heard before. And again, we'll be talking about that on Disney Unpacked. So listen,
a classic Epcot ride, Jim. They were always like 15 minutes long. They were very cozy. There was always it was like being at your grandmother's house. A lot of carpeting.
Yep.
Everywhere. Yep. And just lovely. Mm-hmm. And the thrill of going outside that building, I would argue, matches the thrill of going outside of the building now. Just that little kind of corkscrew kind of escalator effect at the beginning was just wonderful.
You and I have very different memories of that, because have I told you the story about
About you being the last person on, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's as far as I made it.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's literally boarded the vehicle. And by the way, I gave up at that point. It was me and another guy, and I figured he's determined to be the last one. So I will be gracious and be the second to the last guy. And that's the thing. We both boarded the vehicles, indoors, and we went outside, we made the turn, we're about to enter the building, and then there was this god-awful grinding noise. And, the two of us sat there, again, this is January 2nd, 1996, in the cold, in the dark, until this cast member just sort of walked down from inside the ride. It's broken. We're closing it. We're not fixing it. Get out. And I literally got to walk down that ramp to exit the building.
Wow.
So
you were evac'd second to last.
Second to last. So, and yeah, well, that's an excellent point. I was the last one to walk out of the building because the guy was behind me. All right, there we go.
There you go.
All right. Anyway, bringing this show to a close here, folks, if you could do Drew and I a favor, head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review not just this show, Fine Tooning, but also Light the Fuse. That would be helpful. And finally, Drew, social media, where can the nice people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and X, mostly at Drew Tailored, Tailored, like a tailored shirt. And yeah. Okay. There you go. What about you, Jim?
You can find me on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. Anyway, on behalf of Mr. Taylor, who has to get back to his couch, feel better, Drew, soon. And to the nice folks out there, thanks for listening to this week's Fine Tuning, and we will be back soon.